Hi, I just wanted to show you a few of my books to talk you through a little bit about the ideas behind them, the making of them, just to give you a little glimpse into my world today. So I'm just going to clear these from my space so we can do one at a time. Let's start with this one. This book came from a word, expectations. I take part sometimes in a monthly challenge called Are You Book Enough on Instagram, where we're given a word and we make something in response to that word during the month. So for me, this is all about the expectations of opening some sweets, particularly thinking about when you're a child. So I have made it completely with recycled sweet wrappers. As you can see inside of there, just the beautiful gold wrappers. The crinkly sound of this is all part of the experience as well. And then this is the book that's inside that you can unwrap. And can you hear the sound also? It's that rustling of sweet wrappers. And it's one of those things that I think a lot of kids would hear the rustle of wrappers and come running from wherever they are in the home. This is a concertina structure. I like that a lot and use it a lot in my work because it folds in all sorts of different ways. And you can make all sorts of different shapes with it. You can have a lot of fun with it. I also made these with these little edges because it reminded me of a piñata. The colours also, the bright colours, but it's that same feel of a piñata, somebody's birthday and the expectation of hitting it and getting your sweets out of it. I use gold thread a lot in my work, which I think for me is all about elevating the ordinary into something else. For this one, it also goes very well with the chocolate wrappers that are inside. This paper on the outside is handmade paper from wrapping paper from somebody's birthday, which also, so every piece of the book has a little piece to add to the story of the overall creation, and then it all wraps back up again into the macaroon wrapper, I think it is. But there you go. Okay, so secondly, let's go with this one. This was another of my Are You Book Enough challenge. This one, the word was school, and as you can see, the outside of this is just from an school exercise book. You can see that side, and it just comes out of that. And then we have this piece is lots of individual sections, as you can see, all stitched together. The stitching, you can see, is kind of made up. They're all just tied together many times over and over, and lots of loose ends. And I wanted it to kind of echo thoughts of neural pathways and the connections that happen in our brain over and over, one bit to another. It's very flexible and moves a lot because I wanted it to have life and fun to it. And it's made up of each of these sections. It's called a Victorian paper fold, paper puzzle, paper purse, and it's basically a big square that folds down. Now each of these reminds me, this particular fold, I'm very fond of it, and it reminds me of kind of secret notes, secret letters. And the idea behind this book was my memories of school and getting into trouble all the time for talking and talking too much. So my friend and I, Jen, started writing notes to each other, and I'm sure many of you have also had that experience of writing notes to your mate in school, so you don't get into trouble for talking. So that was kind of the thought behind it, if you like. I wanted it to be incredibly playful, so you can see with each of these folds you can pull pieces out, you can make shapes, you can make patterns, you could fold the whole lot out if you wanted to. So I don't have time to show you all now, but you could spend hours folding each of these and making all sorts of configurations with them. The paper is, a section of it is homework from the kids in my household, and the rest of it is from a random selection of old kind of vintage papers from exercise books, workbooks, information kind of books, all to do with some sort of learning and education. But in total I think there's about 5 languages in there as well, so I wanted to show the kind of the fun of education, because I 100% believe we learn better if we're having fun, if we're enjoying, if we're exploring. So this book is all about that. You can spend hours with it, exploring it, changing things, pulling things out, refolding things, exploring. So that's that one. Then this one I made quite a while ago, but I wanted to show you some of my handmade papers. So this piece is, the two ends is a piece of driftwood that I found, and it had a nice kind of break in it that I could snap it and end up with 2 pieces. So inside is a whole load of paper, again in a concertina structure, which can pull out to be quite long. So it's quite a big piece. I love it because of the movement of it. It moves. You can make shapes with it. You can do all sorts of things. It's very movable. It's very, I called it Unfurling, and I made it just sort of at the end of spring. So it kind of echoed the sort of coming out of having been in the winter months. This handmade paper is all made from waste from my home. So we've got red onion skins, turmeric root, chili, ginger root, tea, various teas, chamomile tea, ordinary tea, packaging, burnt red cabbage, amongst other things. And it's all stitched together with gold thread. You can see on either end there's no glue involved, and this little motif here is just a centre from a chamomile flower. So my work is always very playful. I always like things that are very tactile, very playful, and respond to the materials that are around me. So there we go, that's that one. Next I will show you this one. You can probably read, it says Coniston to Brantwood, 30th of the 6th. So this was made as a memory of a trip that I went on across Coniston Water to Brantwood. And Brantwood used to be the home of John Ruskin. It's now a museum, it's been preserved. But I grew up in Sheffield, and I have very, very fond memories of John Ruskin's collections. He's always been very much part of my creative world, I guess. I like a lot of his ethos, so I've always, had him in the back of my mind. So to go visit his home was very exciting for me. When I go anywhere, and especially if I think I'm going to be making some work, I always have to go to a charity shop to see what papers I can find. So on this occasion I found this, which is from a 1980s dress pattern, which took me straight back to a child of the 1980s, and my mum used to make many of our clothes. So that for me is an anchor for that time, when I was looking at Ruskin's collections very regularly. And then this is a map of the area. Then this paper that it's kind of the basis of it comes from an architect's plan that I found a pile of them in a skip in Frankfurt, where I live now. So I took some with me as an anchor for me now, me remembering the 1980s, and then the map of the area. The mountain range that you can see cut into the paper is the view looking back to Coniston on my way to Brantwood, which I thought was a nice idea to use. And at the bottom of each page, very faintly, you can see a little bit of writing, and it's meant to be faint because it's just sort of was my thoughts at that moment of going across the water to go see this home and connect in a new way. It's stitched together in three places, sorry. So there's stitching right down the middle and then on each end. And my reasoning for that is just so that this bit can move. So it can pull out, you know, you can look underneath it. I love that, but it's got like a bit of a life of its own. Okay, so then let's have a look. We'll go for this one next. See, this on its own looks a little bit boring, I would say. And I quite like that. I quite like creating things that maybe don't look like much, but when you fold them out, there's a lot of beauty inside. So this one I'll show you is Coptic stitched together. And you see it's very tiny Coptic stitched, but worth it, I think. And it's a little book full of what I think are little abstract paintings, really. Pages and pages and pages of paintings of little abstract pieces. So this book came from one day when I was clearing my desk. I saw some dirty kitchen towel basically sitting on my desk, and I was going to throw away. But when I looked closely at it, I just thought they were beautiful. The patterns on them, they're just, you know, it's watercolours and inks, and whenever I've dabbed my brush, this is what I've dabbed it on. And it's made all these patterns completely, you know, of its own will. And the paper, kitchen towel paper, is great because it's quite strong, because it's made to soak up a lot. It actually is very firm and very solid, and at the same time very, very delicate. So you can see this piece here is, each sheet of kitchen roll is made up of 3, I guess it depends which brand you buy, but it's made up of 3 very, very thin leaves. Not sure I can get, yeah, there you go. So can you see? So there's 3 very, very fine leaves that are stuck together to make one sheet. So once I had cut them up, stitched them together, I went through and separated all these pages out so that you get the finest, most beautiful, opaque bits of paper. And for me, I think, and I've shown this to many people, not telling them what it's come from initially, and people do think it's like a Japanese paper. You know, it's got that kind of quality of strength but beauty and softness as well at the same time. So I just thought it was very much worth keeping. So there's, oh, I can't open that one now. It's very much worth looking at your rubbish, looking at your rubbish and going, what is that? What does that remind me of? What could I do with that? And you never know what might come of it and what you might make it into, because this is now such a beautiful little thing, from what was rubbish that was going to get thrown into the bin, basically. So yeah, so that's that one. I always have an eye for looking at what I can make with my rubbish and not throw things away. So then we're on to this one, and I think you can see this one says fragile earth, fragile planet, sorry. And as you can see, it's got a very ordered kind of structure to the words, and then it all starts falling apart as you go around the edge. It has this kind of unordered piece to it, which I think speaks for itself when we're talking about our planet. So this book inside is very simple. Again, concertina. Let me just, there you go. Very simple. It's made from, or the paper is graph paper, and I also found this in the skip with the architect's plans, and I loved it because of the colour. So I have graph paper, but I only have grey and blue, so this was particularly lovely and made me think about the earth. It made me think about ochre. See, that was kind of my starting point for using this paper. The drawings are made from lichen, and they are just drawn over and over and over with a wax transfer, and then some ink and some watercolour added in afterwards. And as I was drawing them, I started thinking that they looked like land masses. So that then led my brain to think about how there's such a symbiosis, I think might be the right word, between tiny nature and the much larger picture, and they often kind of echo each other. So I then was thinking about these land masses and kind of how our world is changing and our planet is changing, and wanted to make a kind of something very delicate, very fragile, that was just a little bit of a comment on how beautiful our planet is, but also how fragile it is and how we really need to handle it with care and look after it. So the envelope pocket that it lives in is made out of tracing paper and is very, very fragile in itself. So everything about this book is fragile. And then finally, we'll go with this book, which was another one that came from Are You Book Enough? And the word was Ubuntu, which is a word from South Africa, which is really talking about humanity, and it kind of means that I am because you are. And then we were thinking about how important we are to each other, how important we are as a human race to each other, and how that comes with all sorts of things to think about, and reasons to look after each other. So anyway, this came out of a making session from Instagram during lockdown. I made many friends, artist friends from all over the world, and this was one of them. I had gone to visit in the UK, and a second one came over for the afternoon of making, and it was so lovely to have an afternoon of making with real people rather than on Zoom or something else. So I collected all the little pieces from our work we were making that afternoon. I collected all the scraps left over from that session, stitched them in, and you can see little random stitches. This paper I made before I arrived from recycled billboard. So I collect billboard paper when it falls off, and then can use it to make this paper. So I'd already got those circles, and then this book was gifted to me by my friend, and I really loved the texture of it and the patination on it. So I decided to do this structure, which I've never done before, and I didn't look up how to do it, I just kind of played with it. So this is why it's a little bit scrappy, but I wanted to have an open bound edge so that you could see the pages through. So there. So I hope you've enjoyed listening to. Thank you for staying to the end. And enjoy the other things you can find on my YouTube channel.